الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. As we continue, 7:20 p.m. Wednesday, July the 7th, 2021. On this day of Wednesday, we're now on the Hijri calendar. Today is for us in Dhul Qa'dah. He says the 27th. We got the 26th or the 27th. That happens sometimes. The 27th, I guess we'll say, if we're mistaken, then we'll correct ourselves. For the 27th of Dhul Qa'dah, and this evening, like we said, 7:20 p.m. For the year on the Hijri calendar is 1442 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. As we continue in this tremendous treatise entitled Al-Hamawiyyah al-Fatwa, or Sharh al-Fatwa al-Hamawiyyah al-Kubra, by the great Imam Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah, the one who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. As we continue in this tremendous treatise and explaining the aqidah in regards to those affairs that's connected with asma wa sifat, and at the same time we take lessons from how these affairs are the utmost of importance, because it is pertaining to knowledge of our Lord Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And at the same time, it is what the youth needs to know in regards to why they fall into due to their lack of knowledge of Allah. And they're not understanding the power of their Lord subhanahu, and why Allah Ta'ala allows evil to happen and good to happen in His dominion, even though the human beings have their own choice at the same time. For verily we say, Ya ma'ashar ikhwa, as you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam, he goes on to say in his speech, we were speaking about the affairs of the people of rhetoric and misplaced intellect. The people of rhetoric and the people of misplaced intellect. The people who utilize their rationality or their minds or their intellects in its improper place. And we talked about how Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah was speaking about them in his speech. So we'll continue to read it, inshallah, if one wants to read it. Tafaddal, Muhammad. Oh, you wasn't here last class, was you? I'm not sure. I don't know if we ran out or not yet. Where it says, then this statement, if a person was to contemplate on it, he will find it is in the utmost of ignorance. Does anybody have it? Anybody have it? If for anyone, then this statement, if they was to contemplate on it, they will find it's in the utmost of ignorance.
Further, if a person
you see it?
No.
Okay, tafadhal.
Further, if a person is to ponder on the statement, they will find the pinnacle of ignorance.
What he said, the pinnacle of what does it say?
No.
The pinnacle of ignorance. Okay, tafadhal. I'm sorry.
The pinnacle of misguidance. How can those later generations be more knowledgeable than the Salaf, especially when those referred to here as Khalaf are a party of Ahl Kalam who are confused in matters of religion and are blindfolded from having true knowledge of Allah. And one who observed the furthermost limit of spectacle theology informed of the endpoint of aspiration of the theologians when he said, "Verily, I have traveled to all institutions of logic, and I moved about frequently among those places, but I only saw people rubbing their chin in confusion and grinding their teeth out of regret. Further, Some of them have acknowledged this against their own selves from their statements, citing others and what they mention in their own author works, such as the statement of one of their leaders. The end result of pushing the intellect past its limit is deadlock. And most striving done by the logicians is misguidance. Our souls within our bodies have feeling of loneliness, and the result of our worldly life is only harm and evil consequences. Throughout our lifetime, we have not benefited from our research except gathering hearsay. I have pondered over the method of spectacle theology and what the philosophers, and I found that they do not amount to any benefit whatsoever. I found that the soundest way is the way of the Quran. I read an affirmation, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa. The most beneficial has rose istawa over the throne. Ilayhi yas'adu kalimatu tayyib. To him ascend all good words, Surah Al-Fadl. And I read in negation, Laysa kamithlihi shay'un wa huwa as-sami'ul basir. And there is nothing similar to him, he is all hearing, all seeing. And وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِهِ عِلْمًا, and they will never encompass anything of his knowledge. So whoever experienced the things that I have, whoever experienced the things that I have will know exactly as I have come to know. Another from among them stated, I have entered a vast ocean of speculative theology and left off the
speculative theology, that's what it says?
No.
Speculative theology.
Speculative theology and left off the people Islam and their knowledge. I've indulged in what the scholars have forbidden me from, and now if my Lord does not grant me his mercy, then woe to Fulan, i.e. himself. Here I am dying upon the aqeedah of my mother. Also another one stated, those having the most doubt at the time of death are the people of speculative theology. No. Moreover, these...
Oh, I'm sorry. Tafadhal. No, that's it. That's it. Jazakumullah khair. The Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah, that he continues, he said that if you ponder on this statement, and he was speaking about the affairs pertaining to the statement, or the statement we covered in the last class, where they say that tariqat al-khalaf or tariqat al-salaf aslam. So what is the statement that he said if one was to contemplate over it, he will find it in the pinnacle of ignorance? What statement is Shaykh al-Islam speaking about? He's speaking about what we covered previously, that they mentioned saying, what everyone, tariqat al-salaf aslam. The methodology of the salaf is what is more what is aslam. They say tariqat al-salaf is aslam. That is more what? It's safer. Or that it is most what? We mentioned something else in the last class. We say tariqat al-salaf is more reliable, trustworthy, safer. All the synonyms for all those meanings. So it's a synonym for all those meanings are comprehensive and they're all the same. And he said tariqat al-khalaf is a'lam wa ahkam. And that the way of the later generation is a'lam, is more knowledgeable, is more what? Accurate and most precise. So Shaykh al-Islam here is now speaking about that statement. He's saying this statement, ثم أن هذا القول إذا تدبره الإنسان وجده في غاية الجهالة. That if a man was to contemplate on this statement, they will find that it's in the pinnacle of ignorance. بل في غاية الضلالة. Rather, it's in the utmost of misguidance. So we already covered that. We mentioned that, right, everyone? So then he goes on to say, كيف يكون هؤلاء المتأخرون لا سيما والإشارة بالخلف إلى ضرب من المتكلمين الذين كثر في باب الدين اضطرابهم وغلظ عن معرفة الله حجابهم وأخبر الواقف على نهايات إقدامهم بما انتهى إليه من مرامهم حيث يقول. So he's speaking about those people who came in the later generations, It says, how can they attain this type of what? Status, which is being more knowledgeable and more what? More stable or more accurate. It says, especially with Ishara bil Khalaf, especially what they were talking about or insinuating here in this statement, when they talked about the later generations, was speaking about what? A group or type of people who are involved in rhetoric and misplaced intellect. So that's what he's speaking about. He says, so those who you're speaking about and praising are people who are busying themselves with logic, philosophy, and the likes. So those who you were praising in this statement, that's the reason why he was what? You'll find that he was criticizing this statement and breaking it down and showing how it's, like we said, the pinnacle of ignorance, meaning at the height of it. How it's tafaddal. Everybody go. So he's saying it's at the height of ignorance. He said, why? Because who they were praising in that statement that we covered, like we said, were people who are involved in philosophy and misplaced intellect, as we discussed. So that's what you'll find, like we said, everyone, of what Shaykh al-Islam continues to what? Criticize that statement. They're saying how it's baseless, and not only that, but it's the height of ignorance and the pinnacle of it, meaning the height of it. So that's what we mentioned and said. How as a person can they praise these individuals who are upon these type of affairs pertaining to philosophy and the likes, and that the Salaf did not attain that? So he said, rather, you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam said to put emphasis on his statement. What did he say? بَلْ فِي غَايَةِ الضَّلَالَةِ. Rather, it's in the utmost of misguidance. He says, if a person was to believe the validity of this statement, meaning that they think that it's sound or correct, if they think that, then this is the utmost of misguidance. There's no way that you can say that the people of philosophy and logic and the likes have attained of knowledge where the status for them is now they're the most knowledgeable and their knowledge is the most sound or the most stable. That type of praise, no doubt, for anyone who has a sound, right mind and intellect, they will know that affair or that particular statement is totally incorrect and baseless and invalid. So you'll find that he goes on to say, وكيف يكون هؤلاء المتأخرون حسا ومعنى. How is it that these people came later? Especially, like we said, who they were speaking about is those people who busied themselves with logic and philosophy. He said, because you'll find that if you to do research concerning them, Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say, he said, you'll find that their affairs became disturbed in the aspect of the religion. You'll find that their affairs became what? Totally disturbed. And you'll find that it became in a state of very critical and dangerous. He said, how can you praise the people when their outcome or the final outcome of them was something extremely dangerous? What was he speaking about? He said that their affairs became rocked, unstable within their affairs of their religion, to the point you'll find that they became very callous, meaning that their hearts became void of the knowledge of Allah due to that hijab, due to that cover that had blocked them from truly attaining true knowledge of Allah Ta'ala. You'll find, like we said, Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning this, and he has a lot of examples, and he starts to give them, if you look in your books, to show how unstable or unstable their affairs of their religion became because of them busying themselves with misguidance and logic and rhetoric and philosophy and the likes. What happened to them? What became their state? The ultimate state for any affair is that one attains knowledge of their Lord, and they are upon that 100%, and to die in that state. That's the ultimate goal of any human being, which is the greatest of all state, if you want to say, that a human being could die in. It's not the fact that he amassed an abundance of cars or an abundance of money, but the mere fact that you die in the state where you have surety about your Lord is the greatest of all honor. So how that be the honor, and that is the ultimate goal of every human being, to die in a state where they have absolute yaqeen, surety about Allah Ta'ala, and they actualize the shahadatain, and then busy themselves with a knowledge that attains the total opposite of that. which is doubt in Allah. Doubt concerning Allah. And that's what Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning here. Why would you busy yourself when their own scholars have also confessed with their own tongues their doubt about Allah? And that you'll find the ultimate result is that. So that's what Shaykh al-Islam is saying. If you look in your books, it says, الَّذِينَ كَثُرَ فِي بَابِ الدِّينِ اضْطِرَابُهُم. Those that became abundant in the affairs concerning their religion, instability, totally unstable. And it became what? Callous and very hard, meaning that curtain that had blinded them from Allah Ta'ala became severe. And I don't know how Shaykh Anwar, how do you translate it? Can you read it for me?
And how can these later generations be more knowledgeable than self, especially when those referred to here as khalaf are a part of Ahl Kalam, whom are confused in matters of religion, are blindfolded from having true knowledge of Allah.
Keep reading.
And one who observed the furthermost limit of
Speculative
theology.
Speculative theology. No.
Theology informed about the end point of aspirations of the theologians. He said.
And then we stop here. That's what I wanted to mention. He said a majority of those people who busy themselves with this type of knowledge, of philosophy, misplaced intellect, using their intellects in a manner which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not oblige for us to use or utilize our intellects in. As we talked about this matter repeatedly, what we said what, everyone? The intellect wasn't made to oppose the knowledge. Oppose the revelation. The intellect was made to submit to it and to help utilize it in its proper place. You wasn't supposed to take the intellect and now make that the dominant over the revelation. That's what the people here are doing, from those who we mentioned, the Jahmiyyah, the Mu'tazila, and the Sha'ira, who are considered Ahlu al-Kalam, the people of rhetoric and misplaced intellect, where they utilize their minds and their intellect and in the improper way, until they made that the dominant and the judge over the revelation, when it's supposed to be the opposite. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the wahi in order for us to utilize our intellects and our minds in the proper way. Nobody's negating intellect. Nobody's negating rationality. Nobody's negating understanding with the mind. Nobody's negating that. That's what every human being has been given. To understand that this is hot and this will hurt me, this is cold, that might hurt me, or if I touch this won't hurt me. To understand and reflect and ponder on the stars, ponder on the moon, ponder on certain things around us, that's using the intellect. However, not to improperly use the intellect where you're using it, like where you're using it now in order to what? Reject revelation which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. So Allah sent revelation down, of course, and along with that, the intellect He's given every human being in order that it be used in its proper place. And Allah, you sent down the truth in order of us to teach us instructions exactly of how to use the intellect and what ways to use it, and which will bring benefit for your soul and bring benefit and nutrients to your heart by pondering on the creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to use our intellects. Ponder on the creation, ponder on the mountains, ponder on the sea, reflect on that. Look to all these signs around you. That's using the intellect. However, it's not supposed to be used, like we said, in regards to oppose the revelation that Allah Ta'ala sent down. That's where it becomes misplaced. And that's where it becomes what? That's where it becomes highly condemned and vilified. So this is what we're speaking about now. So that's what you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam brings as another hujjah, another argument, talking about the affairs of their scholars and how those who busy themselves with all these matters of rhetoric and logic and the likes of that, what happened to them consequently. Which what? That ultimately, like we said, the ultimate result of it was doubt concerning Allah Ta'ala. So everyone needs to sum up. Every person who has basic knowledge right now. Why would I busy myself with something that would cause me doubt concerning Allah? Doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to busy myself with loud knowledge and affairs of knowledge. That's the ultimate result of it is to question my religion than to question my Lord. And ultimately have doubt whether or not he exists or not. And that's what you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam is speaking about right now. So he goes on to say, in regards to the different examples that he's going to bring, even what the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad al-Jami, rahimahullah, what he mentioned in this regard. He said, أقرب هؤلاء إلى منهج السلف هم الأشاعرة هل عرفتم حدة الاضطراب الأشاعرة مع قربهم من منهج السلف. We already talked about this. After now, he'll bring examples to substantiate what he's saying about those people who busied themselves with logic and the likes. When he says that the closest to the people of the Salaf from those groups who are called Ahl Kalam. And like we said, Shaykh al-Islam is speaking relatively. He's speaking not because he believes they are the truth. He's speaking it in regards to relatively speaking, meaning in comparison to the people of the truth, that the people of Sha'ira resembles them the closest. Not the fact that they are from them. So people need to understand what Shaykh al-Islam is mentioning that, so they can know why he's saying it and what he intends by it. He's not saying that they are from the truth, because Shaykh al-Islam has numerous books of refutation against their Sha'ira to show that they aren't the people of the truth. But he's saying in comparison, relatively speaking, they are the closest to the people of the Salaf. That's why a lot of people became fooled by them. So those are the reasons why Shaykh al-Islam mentioned this particular statement. Is it clear, everyone? So this is what he's saying here. He's saying they are the closest to the methodology of the Salaf, they are the Asha'ira. He said you'll find that what is the hiddat ittirab al-Asha'ira? He said you'll find what is the affairs that they mixed up, even though they're closest to the methodology of the Salaf, of the pious predecessors. He said, for example, you'll find where they mix up. When he says mix up, meaning that they gather between the affairs of the people who they so-called are against, but in actuality with them. For example, you'll find the examples that the great Imam goes on to say. Like, for example, the Asha'ira, they try to gather or mix between what the people of the Sunnah say and the people of Bid'ah say. For example, he says, you'll find that the characteristic of Allah, such as speech, he says, you'll find that the Asha'ira are unstable. In order for you to know their instability, he said, for example, they affirm speech, but then they go on to play around by saying it's inward speech that's done inside yourself. So it's not outward verbal speech, but it's speech in which one says within himself. And which we'll talk about that later when the time comes to break that down. And on numerous occasions, alhamdulillah, we covered that in Al-Aqidat al-Wasitiyah. Why that claim is baseless, right, everyone? But he's just proven the point of the Asha'ira of how they are unstable, even these type of affairs. For example, the speech of Allah. How they gather between the people the truth by saying, oh yeah, we affirm speech. But however, here's where the playing around goes. This is where they start to now bring the games, if you want to say. By saying, but speech is not verbal speech of what you know, that's done with words or voice. No, we don't believe that. However, we believe that it's inward speech that's done within yourself. What they call kalam nafsi. Is it clear, everyone? So that's the reason why you'll find a book such as the great Imam Abu Nasr Al-Imam Al-Sijzi rahimahullah, Al-Imam Al-Sijzi, what he wrote in his book called Ar-Radd ala man ankara al-harf al-sawt, the refutation against those who reject the notion that the speech of Allah is done with voice and letters. Right? You'll find that's directed towards the Asha'ira. Anyway, just to keep it summarized, he says you'll find how the Asha'ira are unstable in certain affairs. For example, speech of Allah. He said it's speech that's done inwardly within inside yourself, and it's metaphoric. It's not real speech. It's speech that's done within yourself, like inward thoughts. But it's not actual verbal speech that's done with letters or voice. Is it clear, everyone? He said that's an example of that. So those affairs is unstable. Does the people of the Sunnah believe that? It's absolute nonsense. He says you'll find how they so-called take pleasure and change colors in this affair as far as speech. You'll find, for example, that how they journey between, for example, their instability of gathering between truth and falsehood, pertaining to their belief as far as I'm trying to break it down. Excuse me. He said, you'll find how they now reluctant in certain affairs where they try to gather between the aqeedah, the belief of the false group, or the misguided group, the Mu'tazila, and the aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So you'll find they'll try to now please the people of the Mu'tazila by saying, we believe that the speech of Allah is created. Because you'll find that's from the belief of the Ash'ariyah. They believe that the speech of Allah is what? Created. You'll find at the same time, that's agreeing with what everyone? The Mu'tazila. However, they say we only say that in maqam al-ta'aleem. We only say it on certain occasions to certain people, meaning when we want to teach them, or on certain occasions when we need to say it. But ultimately you believe it. The point of the matter is you believe that the speech of Allah is created. Which is in total opposition against what? The people of Sunnah. So now they try to go in between, try to please the people misguidance, and then they'll at the same time they'll try to come with some speech that'll please the people of the Sunnah to make it look like as if they're from them. So it'll come with the title like what? We'll say we affirm speech, similar to what you'll find today. You'll find people that now who claim Salafiyah, we're from the Salafis. Yes, we do claim this. But however, if you was to look at their statements, and if you was to look at their conduct and behavior, you'll find that it's in total contrast to what they so-called claim. Two different worlds, two different things. Gathering between the people the truth and using words that as if they're from the people the truth, but at the same time, if you was to look to their actions and look to their conduct and behavior and what they indulge in, it totally is in contrast to what the Minhaj Salaf or what the Salafis indulge in as far as pertaining to now bring that tamyiz, a differentiation between the truth and falsehood. You'll find that they try to gather, play the same exact games. Even though the people of the past, especially the Ash'ariyah, who's the closest to the people of the Sunnah, but they weren't from them, used to try to play these games. Number one, like we said, was in the speech of Allah. That's number one. Number one is in the speech of Allah with Ta'ala. We say we affirm speech. But however, like we said, we believe it's not verbal speech that's done with words or voice. We believe it's inward speech, similar to what we will now understand as inward thoughts. That's what we believe as far as the speech of Allah. Then you'll find how the Ash'ariyah also play games in regards to the actions. They even fall into the affairs of the Qadariyah. For example, the Ash'ariyah believe, for example, the methodology of the Jabriyah. The Jabriyah is the group that believe that all the actions of the servants have been forced upon them. They had no choice in the matter. However, they try to now say, no, we don't say that completely. So they'll play games. What does the games they play? We'll try to bring some truth in it to allow the people to what? Accept it. So what we'll say is, we won't say that the actions are forced. So what do you say, O Sha'ira? What do you say? We say that the actions of the slaves is kasb lahum. It's an acquisition for them. They call it kasb al-abd. However, the one who did it in reality is Allah. But the one who did the act, that's an acquisition for them. It's almost like an appliance that broke down. Like an appliance that you try to click on, but the human being, it doesn't work now, it's broke down. So in actuality, it's Allah who did it. So, this affair of what they call kasb al-abd, acquisition of the slave or the servant, still agrees with who? Still agrees with the affairs of the Jabriyah, which is a type of deviation in the Qadr, the Jabriyah. So you'll find the Ash'ariyah play these type of games. So you'll find in some of their books they mention this. They say, for example, you'll find they say, no, we're not going to say that the actions are forced, frankly. Like the people from the Qadr who are called the Jabriyah. We're not going to say that frankly. We'll say it's called kasb. So we'll come with a little bit of form in order to what? Get the people to allow the people to accept it. So we'll come with this type of games and these speech, which is all of it is baseless. So those are the things you'll find that the Ash'ariyah and Shaykh al-Islam had exposed. From them also, as far as in the affairs of the ulu, the aboveness of Allah, the loftiness of Allah over His creation. You'll find they're unstable in those affairs likewise. Rather, you'll find that the Ash'ariyah are the most frank in those who deny the aboveness of Allah over the creation. They do not play any games in regards to that. In the games, as far as with the speech of Allah, they play games. As far as the name and the attributes, they affirm some and others, and negate others, but affirm some. And then some of those characteristics they affirm, they say it needs to be what? Twisted. So they play a bunch of games. However, the point of the matter is, in regards to the ulu, the aboveness of Allah, they'll say to your face, we do not believe Allah is above the heavens at all. Rather, you'll find that there are certain statements that are extremely dangerous, what they'll say, in which some of the youth even mention while they're little children, where they repeatedly mention this while they're kids, memorizing the poetry called Sanusiya. And what they'll say in that poetry is Sanusiya repeatedly, over and over and over again, saying that Allah is not above the Arsh. He's not above the throne, nor is he under the throne, nor is he to the right of it, nor is he to the left of it. Rather, you even find them say statements such as Al-Arsh wal-Farsh ala haddin sawa. He said that above and below is upon the same way. Those are the type of affairs that you'll find that they're raised upon. They're cultivated upon that misguidance. And whoever's cultivated upon this misguidance, we have no doubt that at the end they're going to more likely have doubt concerning the Lord. And when you say that Allah is not above or below or to the left or to the right, alhamdulillah, you'll find that Ahl Ilm say in regards to this, if you was to now give a great example of something that don't exist, describe it to me. It's not above, it's not below, it's not to the right, it's not to the left. That's a great description of saying what? Of something that does not exist. So that is in regards to those type of statements and that type of instability. The type of instability that the people or the group called the Asha'ira have in these type of matters. You'll even find that the great Imam mentioned all of these matters in his book. It's all there. So you even find that they mention to say, for example, that Allah is not above. Or that Allah Ta'ala is everywhere. Or is in everything. You'll find a very dangerous instability in this affair. Instability, like we said, in regards to the actions of the slaves, in regards to the qadr, so many things that you'll find that they mix up, which is speech that's not clear, and it, like we said, ultimately it renders the people to falling into suspicion and doubt concerning the origin or the foundation of their religion. And like we said, if something is the ultimate goal of it is to be doubtful in, why busy yourself with it? Doesn't make any sense. If something causes doubt in your affairs of what's concerning your Lord, why would one even want to busy themselves with it at all? So you'll find, like we said, all of them have mixed up these affairs. Even, for example, another example, we'll leave it off here. You'll find that they're even unstable in regards to seeing Allah in the hereafter, and even in paradise. You'll find that they affirm it, however, they say affirming it without the actual meeting taking place, which is totally impossible. You'll find that they say, yeah, Allah can be seen, well, however, it will happen without a muqabala. It happens without a muqabala. Meaning the actual meeting that would take place with Allah, our Lord Ta'ala, that's no reality to it. Which in actuality, it doesn't make any sense. How can you affirm something that you see? In actuality, the actual meeting between you and him will never take place. So all these affairs are confusing, bewildering, speculative, causes doubt. Why? Because even when children hear this, and anyone that has the Adam's weight of sense, know that these affairs, what? Do not make sense. That's why you say you can't make sense out of nonsense. Right, everyone? You cannot make sense out of nonsense. When it's absolute nonsense, you can't make sense out of it. So what we're saying, so these affairs in regards, you'll find how the Asha'ira with Shaykh al-Islam mentions that he takes time to rebuttal out of fear that the people will what? Think that they're the people of the truth, but in actuality, with truly reality, they're not. That's the reason why, like we said, you will find that he had taken numerous opportunities to criticize the Asha'ira out of fear that the people would think they're the people of the truth, and they're not. So all these are matters you'll find that he says, this is who he's speaking about. He's speaking about the Jahmiyyah, he's speaking about the Mu'tazila. However, Here in these lines, we were discussing the affairs concerning the Asha'ira. Why, everyone? Because they were the closest to Ahl Sunnah, even though they weren't from them, but they were the most dangerous because, like we said, they had characteristics of them, but you'll find that their characteristics in regards to other matters clearly shows otherwise. So then you'll find Shaykh al-Islam, he goes on to say, if you look in your books, he says, وَغَلُظَ عَنْ مَعْرِفَةِ اللَّهِ حِجَابُهُمْ, meaning they do not believe in the true, of course, excuse me, I'm sorry everyone, the logic that they use have bonded them, and it made a curtain between them and true knowledge of Allah. And we gave numerous examples of this. We said about the affairs of the speech of Allah, which we'll discuss later on. And we talked about the affairs concerning the Qadariyah, or the Qadr, which similar goes back to the Jahmiyyah, but however, I don't want to confuse anyone. And for example, we said concerning how the believers will see Allah in the hereafter. They say that's not true either. That's not true. The vision that, or the so-called believers looking at Allah, there's no reality to it. That's not true either. That's something different. It's not actually how you will understand it if you was to say, for example, that the believers will look upon Allah. That's not what's truly implied. Rather, it's implied as something else, or it'll take place without the actual meeting taking place. So all these affairs are what we're mentioning. And all these affairs which you'll find that the Salaf were upon is clear. For example, when the great Imam Abdullah bin Mubarak, rahimahullah, that he said, بِمَا نَعْرِفُ رَبَّنَا, how do we know our Lord? He said, نَعْرِفُهُ بِأَنَّهُ فَوْقَ الْعَرْشِ فوق السماء السابعة على العرش بائن من خلقه. He said, how do you know your Lord? Abdullah bin Mubarak said, rahimahullah, he said, we know him above the throne. He's above the seventh heaven, above the throne, and he's separate and distinct from the creation. Separate and distinct from the creation. So when you say these matters, for example, we can even go back to what? The great Sahabiyyah, our mother, Zaynab bint Jahsh, radiallahu anha. And what we discussed of what happened with the great Sahabi Zayd ibn Haritha when he divorced her, and then the Messenger of Allah married her. You'll find that Zaynab bint Jahsh, radiallahu anha, ibn Ammati Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and I think her mother's name was Umayma, for what I remember. But anyway, she said a statement when she became married to the Messenger of Allah. She said when she was bragging to the rest of the wives over what was her bounty and what was her virtue over them. She said a very profound statement to show the belief of the companions of the Messenger of Allah. So everyone would grasp this understanding and hold firm to it. To know that the understanding of the Sahaba were what? That Allah was above. And He was not below or within the creation, or mixed within the creation, or the creation being mixed within Allah. Listen to what she says. She says, زَوَّجَكُنَّ أَهَالِيكُنَّ, your families married you off. وَلَكِنْ زَوَّجَنِي اللَّهُ مِنْ فَوْقِ السَّبْعِ السَّمَاوَاتِ. He said that your families married you off. However, Allah married me off directly from above the seven heavens. Because Allah said in the Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab, زَوَّجْنَاكَهَا, we married you. In which the fadl of Zaynab bint Jahsh, she was married without any shuhud, any witnesses, without the wali, or with anything. The one who married her off was Allah directly. And the one who married her off directly, and she even said in some narrations, the Safir was Jibreel. The one who delivered the news of saying that I would be married to the Messenger of Allah was Jibreel. So she used to use these type of narrations to make the other wives what? Feel a little bad. Say, see, Allah married me off directly. But Aisha came with something also. But we'll talk about that later. But what we were saying, the point of the matter is, it says in the hadith is what, everyone? She said, your families married me off. We married you off, excuse me. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala married me from where? Above the seven heavens. Allah married me from above the seven heavens. So that was the understanding of the Sahaba, the companions of the Messenger of Allah, that Allah Ta'ala was above. Where's 7 heavens? You used to ask the Asha'ira, all these people who do not believe that Allah is above. Where is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heavens? Where are they? They're everywhere. One stacked upon another. Where are they? They're somewhere in the ocean. Where are they? And then you'll find narrations that says from one heaven to another is the distance of 500 years. As it comes to the narration of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, which also takes the ruling of a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So where's all these years, O Asha'ira, if you don't believe Allah is above? 500 years, and then another 500 years, to another 500 years, to another 500 years. And going up. Even the shayateen themselves, when they steal khabar, when they want to steal the news of what's been preordained, they have to stand up and go up to the heavens to hear something of some news that's been preordained for the creation here. So that should let you know that even the shayateen know. That even the devils know that Allah Ta'ala is where? Is above. And if they want to steal some news in regards to some of the creation, so they can give it to some of the sorcerers and magicians here in the dunya, they have to stack and go up, to go up, to go up, to go up, to hear something of something that's been preordained for someone here or something in this world. They even know they have to go up. So you even make the devils better than you in these affairs. They even know they have to go up to hear some news of what's been preordained for someone here in this dunya. Is it clear, everyone? So those matters are what we're saying, everyone. So these matters of what's been clearly established, which we'll talk about, like we said, in a later time, because I'm going to keep going. But at any rate, let's go back to what Shaykh al-Islam said. He said, in these regards to now, these theologians that busy themselves with speech or rhetoric or misplaced intellect, like we said, using their minds to rationalize so-called, and their claim, revelation. And bringing intellectual so-called ideas and then introducing that into the religion until they fell into the atrocities that they fell into. And the dangerous affairs, like we said, that led them ultimately to doubt. So now Shaykh al-Islam is bringing his evidences. Now listen to what he says. وَأَخْبَرَ الْوَاقِفَ عَلَى نِهَايَاتِ إِقْدَامِهِمْ. He says, you'll find that they mention now that the person who busied themselves with that, informing the people of the consequences and the ultimate or the ending result of their knowledge that they acquired. It says, من هذا القائل, you'll find that it says in the poetry, الشهرستاني. He has a book called Al-Milal wal-Nihal. Al-Shahrastani. He has a book called, or it's entitled, everyone, Nihat al-Iqdam fi ilmi al-Kalam. He has a book entitled Nihat al-Iqdam, or the final result, or the ending result in knowledge of rhetoric, meaning philosophy and mantiq, logic. That's the name of it. It's called Nihat al-Iqdam or Nihat al-Iqdam fi ilm al-Kalam. The ending result or the final result of one busying themselves with rhetoric. Rhetoric meaning philosophy and logic and rationality of the mind. You'll find that he put in the poetry where he said, if you look, he said, لعمري لقد طفت بين المعاهد كلها وصيرت نظري بين تلك المعالم ولم أرى إلا واضعا كف حائد على ذقن أو قانعا سن نادم. He said, verily, I most definitely tuftu, like he made tawaf. He said, I've ridden around in those institutes, meaning those places of learning, to acquire knowledge, meaning the places where I learned logic. And I sat in those circles, and I spent a lot of time in them, busied myself until I became engrossed within it. Became engrossed within that knowledge, deeply in it. He said, وَصَيَّبْتُ الطَّرْفِ بَيْنَ تِلْكَ الْمَعَالِمِ. He said that I busy myself with that, meaning those are places of learning, being engrossed in it, Look to what he said, the final result of it. Look to what it says. فَلَمْ أَرَ إِلَّا وَاضِعًا كَفَّ حَائِرٍ. I didn't see except anything, or the final result was putting my hand in bewilderment upon my chin. Meaning looking like this, just looking around like out of confusion. Like you put your hand like this on your chin and just like thinking and contemplating like, wow, I'm just so confused. I'm confused. He says, كَفَّ حَائِرٍ, in the hand of one who's in a state of bewilderment and confusion. Upon my chin, or grinding my teeth, or he says in a state of what? Regret. Which we'll talk about how some of them even said to their students, clearly stating to them that, are you in surety of Allah's existence? And he'll say, you sure? To the students, they say, of course. They said, praise Allah for that. Meaning that I'm in a state of doubt. So their own scholar, who they're receiving knowledge from, is in the state where the students are saying they know and have surety about Allah's existence. But however, their own teacher is now becoming a state of what? Doubt concerning it. So you'll find from Shahrastani, who's from the Kibar, and I don't mean this of praise, we're talking about in regards to their scholars, from the major scholars of the people of rhetoric. He was from the Kibar ulama al-Kalam, from their revered scholars, with Shahrastani. So he's saying here, what everyone, of what was mentioned in his book, they say, he mentioned this in his book. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it wasn't ascribed to him, but he still put it in his book, called Nihayat al-Iqdam fi Ilm al-Kalam. Some of them say it was ascribed to him, some of them say other than that. The point of the matter is he put it in his book to highly condemn and dispraise what everyone, that one busy him or herself with what? The knowledge of rhetoric. He put it in his book. So you'll find that he mentioned concerning that the outcome or the final result was doubt. So that is to show clearly the consequences of one going outside the guidance of Allah and His Messenger. Instead of saying Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah, rather they'll say Qala Urustu. Instead of saying Allah said, His Messenger said, or the Sahaba they said, you'll find they'll say Aristotle said. Aristotle said, such and such said. Those type of people. Those are the affairs, like we said, are dangerous. And if you want to add to that, even when you want to quote non-Muslims in certain affairs, even in regards to politics, even in regards to certain matters that's pertaining to the religion, and quoting them and using them of things that the Muslims are in total self-sufficient of having knowledge of those, or obtaining knowledge from those certain people, from the non-Muslims. You'll find that a person of the Sunnahs, they start the so-called, now they'll bring statements of Dale Carnegie, who committed suicide, and use it in quoting from him. Non-Muslim statements, Umar Thompson, who claims now, of course he doesn't even believe in a religion. He thinks religion is the problem. Rather, you'll find that he believes that religion is the cause of the issues of so-called black people. That's his belief. And then Muslims are using their statements and quoting their statements and utilizing it. What was you saying? I'm sorry, Muhammad. Omar Johnson. What did I say? I said Umar, right? Yeah. Omar. What did I say?
Umar Johnson.
Umar Johnson. Ahsant. Umar Johnson. I meant to say Umar Johnson. Who say that the belief of religion or religion is the problem. That's the issue. The issue is religion. And I have no doubt that the majority of these people are Masons. They're all Masons. People who busy themselves with Masons. We got sneezes, we got coughs, we got salams, still in the Fine. So then we have, if you go back to the poetry, what does it say, everyone? Because we got the stop soon. Those you'll find, even though Shaykh al-Islam is using the people of speech, but the same thing or the same methodology is still one, everyone. We do not want to start busying ourselves by going outside of Qala Allah, Qala Rasulullah. And that the only reason why we bring speech of non-Muslims or speech with certain things when you want to critique certain groups is because you'll find that those so-called revered scholars with them, meaning not with the people of the Sunnah, with them, utilizing their own speech against them with their own scholars. That was the greatest arguments that Shaykh al-Islam was bringing here in this book. He was saying here that your own scholar from the major scholars of speech, of rhetoric, not the major scholars of the people of the Sunnah, they're the ones that's even saying with their own tongues that the ultimate goal or the ending result of busying yourself with this affair was doubt concerning Allah. This is what your own revered scholar is saying. So that's from the greatest ways to establish proof against the individual. When you're using their speech not of with regards to utilizing it as a dalil for yourself, but a dalil against the actual what? Person you're critiquing, to use their own people. How their own people agree with you, and then saying this is your own so-called scholar saying this. So why are you not following it? He's telling you that this affair is extremely dangerous. Don't busy yourself with it. Leave it off. Because it caused me to be in a state where I regret and I have severe remorse in. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? No. So those are the greatest affairs and the greatest ways that one can establish the proof against the individual. By bringing their statements in order to what? Establish the haqq. Not in regards to utilizing it to where we now attain the haqq from it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? We don't look to them to attain haqq from them. But when we want to critique an individual, we use their own called revered scholars against them. So those are the affairs that we find, in which you'll find Shaykh al-Islam is establishing as a methodology here, for everyone to learn that. And that's what he's saying here. So not to busy yourself with rhetoric and logic, and not to busy yourselves with politicians and their statements. The same thing. They're all in the same falak. They're in the same space because they're all people of what? Falsehood. And they bring speech that if you busy yourself with it, it could cause some doubt concerning Allah ta'ala. And or it might cause some doubt concerning his legislation. If you busy yourself with their type of rhetoric and speech and their type of policies and the type of terms they use. Because if you don't ponder or you know some of their so-called statements as far as the governmental politicians and officials, during even some of their so-called debates, in which they know that the average person does not understand the type of terms they use, and they know that. So you're just sitting there looking, and you're like, I don't understand a word he's saying. They know you don't understand. They're using terms and terminologies of certain things. Well, except Donald Trump, that's something different. But as far as in regards to the so-called educated from amongst them, they're using terms that you do not understand. You don't know what they're saying. They could be saying in certain ways, mocking at you, you don't even realize it. But they're using it another word. But in actuality, they're talking about you, right to your face, but you don't understand it because they're using terminologies that you haven't learned. Those type of ways, when you engross yourself in those type of knowledge, if you now have done it in a way where you have been established firmly in the Aqidah, your scholarly or scholarly caliber, and you're now coming to critique to bring the dangers of it, that's something different. But if the average common folk busies themselves with politics and policies, engrossing themselves in their type of speech and terminologies, just out of curiosity, and you're from the common folk, these are the affairs that become extremely dangerous. Because now those affairs will bring misguidance, and it will bring some type of darkness and blackness upon your heart. But if you're a person that's firmly established in the Sunnah, and you now want to critique because it's a potential danger over the Muslims, but you're well established in these affairs, and you're able to now bring the dangers and the corrupt ideologies as opposed to Sunnah, and make it clear to the people to say, this is the reason why we say to you, don't busy yourself with politics, based upon this right here, this right here, this right here. This is the reason why we tell you, do not busy yourself with, for example, democracy, because of this right here, this right here, this right here. This because of polytheism, here because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that legislates, and that they allow the people now to be the people who so-called have an opinion over what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down a revelation in regards to how land should be ran. Those affairs, when you now break it down, if you critique the person, and like we said, that's only for a certain group of people. It's not for all of them, everyone. It's for people who have understood these books properly. And their Aqidah is strong, and they're able to now go in those books and pick all the misguidance out of it, and they give it to the people. But however, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah is only talking about to stay away from those affairs, because with these scholars here in regards to philosophy, all said that they were in the state of what? Doubt, and in the state of what? Misguidance, and in the state of doubt, I'm sorry everyone, being in a state of confusion. Until some of them, even like we said, even at their deathbed, saying that I wish I would have just stuck to the affairs of one's natural disposition, meaning of a baby, when they came out of the womb of their mother. I wish I would have just stuck to that, and that was it. Instead of wasting my time engrossed in all these different books of theologians that just compare this, that just basically all their philosophy is to establish one argument against another argument, against another argument, against another argument. And that's what they're busy with all day long. And then the final end is just a waste of time, realizing that they should have just stick with the revelation of which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, that their natural inclination to agree with, and that they stuck to that. Is it clear, everyone? Right, so let's go on. So it says in the poetry, what does it say, everyone? Shahrastani goes on to say, لعمري لقد طفت المعاهد كلها وسيرت طرفي بين تلك المعالم فلم أرى إلا واضعا كف حائد على ذقن أقاري عن سن نادم. Then he goes on to say, we already read that poetry. He said, وأقروا على نفوسهم بما قالوا متمثلين به أو منشئين له فيما صنفوه من كتبهم كقول بعض رؤسائهم. He said they have now affirmed over them for themselves of what they have said, giving examples out of that or striking examples, or they'll just bring actual statements of what they'll bring in their treaties, meaning from their books, and what they have recorded in their books. He says, such as the statement of the heads of some of them. He's about to bring another head from the people of rhetoric, who they call Al-Fakhr Razi. Matter of fact, it's the statement of, I thought it was Fakhr Razi, Abu al-Ma'ani al-Juwayni. Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni. Correct that. Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni, they call him Imam al-Haramain. And I think he wasn't even Imam of the Haramain. However, he was from the Kibar, the ulama of the Shafi'iyah. They made so much exaggeration in regards to him to the point you hear strange statements such as, if there was any prophet after the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it would have been Imam al-Haramain, Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni. That's how much exaggeration they bring of statements about him. So, this to let you know, those people who busy themselves with rhetoric or not logic, how this individual was to them. That's to give you a perspective in your mind, how high of a status he had with them. So what did he say? No. So what did he say? He said that the ending result of the intellect and rationality is iqal. Is iqal. Means absolute confusion. It's absolute doubt. Bewilderment. And the majority of the efforts of the world is misguidance. Matter of fact, let me read it in your books. Read it for me. Read it for me.
He said the end result of pushing the intellect past its limits is deadlock.
Exactly. The ultimate result of passing the intellect beyond its limits is what? Is deadlock. It's just confusion. Tfaddal.
And he went on to say, and most striving done by the logicians is misguided.
He's talking about al-alimeen, but here it says al-alameen. He said the efforts of those who busy themselves with what? Logic and rhetoric. That's who he's speaking about. Their efforts have became what? Misguidance. Keep reading.
Our souls within our bodies have feelings of loneliness, and the end result of our worldly life is only harm and an evil consequence.
Exactly. Why is it their souls become what? Alone. Why, everyone? Because the true nutrients for the soul is wahi. The true nutrients for the soul is revelation from Allah, speech of Allah, kalam Allah, dhikr Allah, remembrance of Allah, the speech of Allah. That's the true nutrients of the what? Of the soul. They abandoned that and left this and have adopted the speech of Aristotle and Plato. And that was regards to that. So those type of affairs, when you abandon true nutrients for bad nutrients, it causes now what? Darkness, blackness, to the point where they start to feel alone, loneliness within themselves. So that's the opposite effect. That's what happened. When you left off an abandoned revelation from Allah, which gives true nutrients to the heart and the soul, you abandon that, this is what happens. So when you busy yourself with politics, busy yourself with democracy, busy yourself the affairs of liberalism and democracy and all those other matters, if you busy yourself and engross in it, this will happen also. So these are the affairs where Shaykh al-Islam is saying, be very cautious of. Don't busy yourself with these matters. These are great scholars from the people of logic saying this about themselves. And he's not saying great scholars from the people of Sunnah, no. He's talking about revered scholars with them, not with us, with them, saying these statements. Like we said, they exaggerated Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni to the point they said he would have been the prophet of Allah if there was a prophet after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just absolute stupidity. But it says that their souls within their bodies are lonely, and that the ultimate consequence was what, everyone? What does it say?
Only harm and an evil consequence in this worldly life.
Exactly. Harm and an evil consequence. Like we said, even brothers and sisters will speak about that the effects of logic and those affairs, they're the ones that cause all these different atrocities in the world. Those matters of logic and busying themselves with that, everything can be rationalized, so-called, in their minds, without no so-called unseen nature that affects human beings in so-called any which way. There's always a rational way or a rational explanation for why certain things happen, of cause and effect of certain things. There's nothing that's unseen. That's what we mentioned and said. If you look to the Aqidah of the Mu'tazila, they believe there's no punishment in the grave. So you find that this is what the affairs led to, of adopting logic into a penetrated the mind to the point where they totally negated what everyone, that the knowledge of the grave. Why? Because when we open it, we don't see anything. So my rational says, or rationality dictates what? There's nothing going on there. Because it's not there. I don't see it. That's why you'll find that Imam al-Barbahari said that the belief of Ahl-Sunnah, even though we don't see it, we still firmly believe in it. Why? Because it's from the affairs of what? The unseen. And we do not say of those who say just because if we open the grave, we don't find anything, that means there's no reality to it. That is the belief he was refuting the Mu'tazila, to show the danger of what they fell into, of busying themselves and adopting the ideologies of what? Of the people of Kalam, the people of, like we just mentioned. And like we said, from the heads of them is who? Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni. Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni. Matter of fact, I'll change it. It's not Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni. I was right the first time. I always doubt myself all the time. And then I found I rechecked myself, I was right. It was Fakhr Razi. Fakhr Razi made this statement. Stop doubting myself. Fakhr Razi. Fakhr Razi made this statement. So it's described to Fakhr Razi. Exactly, what we're reading from right now. Read the last part for me.
He said, throughout our lifetime, we have not benefited from our research, except gathering heresy. He said, I have pondered over the methods of speculative theology and that of the philosophers, and I found that they do not amount to any benefit whatsoever.
طيب. So this is these examples that Shaykh al-Islam is bringing. He's saying, now look, he said you'll find, he said they acknowledge for themselves, وَأَقَرُّوا عَلَى نُفُوسِهِمْ بِمَا قَالُوا, that they acknowledge for themselves what they're saying, what they're stating, which is giving examples. And these are the examples they're given. He says, or they'll bring actual statements that's not brung in poetry form. And that's what we're about to bring right now. So go on and read it. Keep reading, everyone.
He said, and I found that the soundest way is the way of the Quran, where I read in the affirmation, Ar-Rahman ala al-Arsh istawa, the most beneficent rose over istawa, the throne. And where he said, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, to him ascend all good words. I'm just...
Keep going, you're good.
And I read in negation, he said, Laysa kamithlihi shay'un wa huwa as-sami'ul basir. There is nothing similar to him, and he is the all-hearer and the all-seer. And where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, they will never encompass anything of his knowledge.
Jade. So now we're going to bring examples of what they bring stated, or statements that's not in the form of poetry. He said, it's insha. Insha means in Arabic language like it's actual statements that they've said for themselves. That's all. So what he's mentioned is said, as Allah and His Messenger, like we talked about, everyone, that's what brings nutrients to the heart, and it brings lightness to the chest after it becomes tight. However, these people have been busy with this type of affair, or this type of methodology. Affairs concerning philosophy and logic. They left off, like we said, will bring relaxation and serenity to oneself and to their soul and to their heart. Until you'll find that it's been narrated of some of them that during the nights they used to now bring out one argument and argue with another argument, and bring one argument and bring another argument, and bring one and bring another one. He says until they took a lahaf, they took like some type of a date palm or some type of a branch, and they start to strike their face to the point where it became very exhausting. And they threw it until they came upon the morning. Until it says, some of their students entered upon that individual. And they said to him, he said to the students, are you upon surety in regards to Allah existing? They said, of course. They said, ihbadu rabbakum. وَإِنِّي بِتُّ هَكَذَا فَلَمْ أَصِلْ إِلَى الْحَقِيقَةِ حَتَّى الْآنِ. Verily I came in the night, meaning spending the whole night. I didn't arrive to the reality or the truth even to this moment. So that's all to establish what Shaykh al-Islam is saying here. Bringing statements of the revered scholars of the people of philosophy, that they're making these type of statements. Knowledge of the people of what? The Greek philosophers. The theologians from Greece, or the Greek theologians, or what have you. Even those people who are so-called ascribed to Islam, and they call them Islamiyyin. People who are so-called ascribed to Islam, even though they busied themselves with these matters. Same thing. You'll find that they even mention in their statements. So now we go from poetry to what? Now we're going to switch it to what, everyone? To the statement, where they say, and we'll talk about now, he says, I found that it did not what? Cure any illness or sickness, meaning sickness of the heart. It said, فَمَا رَأَيْتُهَا تَشْفِي عَلِيلًا. And they cure any sickness, meaning the sickness of the heart, not as far as the body or the ailments of the body. He's talking about the heart, of bringing relaxation and tranquility, of having surety of why they exist as a human being. What am I here for? Why? Who's my maker? Who's the one that created me? What's my purpose of being here, walking on this earth? He saw all of those affairs never became answered. It just increased in more and more what? Speculation and conjecture and confusion. He said, وَلَا تُرْوِي غَلِيلًا. It didn't benefit anything. And it didn't satisfy my thirst. Or it didn't quench my thirst. He said, rather, the greatest of affairs you'll find is the methodology of the Quran, in which we ask Allah Ta'ala, if the person, especially if he's talking about Abu al-Ma'ali Juwaini, and I think in what was the last thing that he died upon was that that he did actually make Tawbah in the end, which we'll talk about later. But however, you'll find if you look at your books, he says, if I would have only had adhered to the statements of the Book of Allah, as far as, for example, in affirmation, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the most merciful over the throne ascended, or above the throne ascended. He says, if I would have just stuck with that, I would have never reached this level of confusion. He says, why? Because you'll find that these are the ayats that the philosophers and those who are sick in their hearts did not want to hear. And those who've been affected by the philosophers, they don't want to hear those ayats. It's very, very what? Disturbing to them. It doesn't bring them any tranquility. It disturbs them. That's the reason why you'll find that the great Imam Ibn al-Qayyim has a book entitled Sawa'iq al-Mursala. It's called Sending the Lightning Upon the Jahmiyyah and the what? And the people who deny the attributes of Allah, who are called the Mu'attila. He said the reason why you'll find that he put in this book the striking of lightning upon them is because he used to bring these type of ayat, because he knew that those are the ayats that really renders them in a state of disturbance. They've become disturbed. They don't want to hear that Allah is above 7 heavens. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that from one heaven to another is 500 years. They don't want to hear there's a sea above the water. There's a water hovering above the 7 heavens. They don't want to hear those ayat. They don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. That's the reason why he entitled this book with this type of title. Striking the lightning against what? The Jahmiyyah and those who deny the attributes of Allah, who are called the Mu'attila. He said all those ayats strike a nerve with them. Drives them crazy. Drives them nuts. Drives them to be what? Confused. It drives them to the point they'll probably sit in their room. Dang, it is 7 heavens. Man, where is this 7 heavens? Dang, where is these 7 heavens that they keep talking about? One over another, and there's 500 years between. Yeah, where is that? What about these ayats that the angels ascend to Allah in the years of what we understand as 50,000? Then here's those verses in the Book of Allah. The Surah Al-Ma'arij. Where Allah Ta'ala says, تَعْرُجُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ وَالْرُوحُ إِلَيْهِ فِي يَوْمٍ كَانَ مِقْدَارُهُ 50,000 سَنَةً. That the Spirit and the angels ascend to Allah of what we understand is the amount of time of 50,000 years. When they hear those ayats, it's like there's no answer. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. La ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. الله أكبر الله أكبر. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمد الوصية والفضيلة وبعث مقام محمود الذي وأتاه. For what we said, brothers and sisters, somebody's adhan is late. Somebody's So you'll find that the first poetry was ascribed to whatever you want, Shahrastani. The second one was ascribed to who? The Fakhr Razi. The Fakhr Razi, Ya Ma'ash al-Ikhwa. The Fakhr Razi The fact that you study a knowledge and you take a knowledge is better than any worship that you could do right now. It's better than even if a person was to pray 2 rakats. Unless you're praying Tahiyyat al-Masjid, that's something different. So brothers and sisters, like I said, this is the best form of worship of Allah that you're doing right now. There's no greater way of drawing closer to Allah than what you're doing in this very moment. Because I noticed that certain people, they're busy, they'll pray 2 rak'ats and they'll be praying sunnahs consistently. The best thing to do is to busy yourself with ilm. Because worshiping Allah upon ignorance is the worst form of state that a worshipper could be in. Because in that you seek refuge in Allah when you recite Surah Al-Fatiha maybe 20 times a day. Oh Allah, don't make me like those who what? غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. Other than those who your anger has what? Fell upon. Meaning, those people who attain knowledge but they didn't work by it, who are the Jews. Nor those who went astray, meaning that they worshipped you upon ignorance, who are the Christians. To not make me like those. Worshipping and drawing close to Allah based upon what? Ignorance and misguidance. Who are the Christians, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about them. So busy yourself with ilm in these times is the best thing. And then pray your sunnahs afterwards, after the class is concluded, inshallah. Worship Allah ta'ala and continue that after the class is concluded. So who he's saying, all these are statements that you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam that he brings, and a lot of them has been related that they did make tawbah towards the end of their life. Such as Al-Fakhr Razi, and such as Al-Imam Al-Haramayn Al-Juwayni, which we'll discuss tomorrow. That in the last part of their life they did make what? Tawbah. That has been narrated. But the point of why Shaykh al-Islam was bringing is to establish what, everyone? That all these affairs of one busying themselves, all these matters, you'll find that those who busy themselves and argue with falsehood in these days and times of Muhammad Hijab, busied himself with these type of affairs, which is logic. And you'll find that the Muslims, due to the fact that they have not well established themselves in these type of books, realizing that the man is arguing with falsehood in order to what? Fight and combat falsehood. Like we said, brothers and sisters, and I hope everyone grasps this basic statement I'm about to say. You can't fight one call of the hellfire with another call to the hellfire. It doesn't make any sense. You cannot combat one call to the hellfire with another call to the hellfire. That's an easy statement to grasp and understand. If you was to now apply that on what we're saying now, that goes widespread for a lot of calls out there. For example, they want to combat white bigotry or racism with black nationality from the Nation of Islam. So you backing up one call to the hellfire with what? Fighting it with what? Another call to the hellfire. Does it make any sense? You cannot fight fire with fire or misguidance with misguidance. It will ultimately equal misguidance and it will ultimately end you up in the hellfire. Is it clear, everyone? All those affairs, what we're mentioning, is for a person to understand the methodology of Shaykh al-Islam. He's saying the same thing here in these books. But if he was to apply it all around, it also applies to those matters that we just gave examples of. Even though he's refuting the people of logic. And there's still people to this day that try to debate in the name of Islam, utilizing logic to try to so-called establish the truth, relying upon falsehood in order to combat falsehood. And like if you want to say, for better words again, combating the call of hell, we're utilizing an argument that's another call to the hellfire. Is it clear, everyone? You only can fight the call to the hellfire by the call to the people of paradise, which is the revelation from Kitab al-Sunnah Madhab al-Salaf. Is it clear, everyone? That's it. No more, no less. Have that in your mind. You'll be able to refute a lot of the concepts that are out here. Because I've heard Muslims who say that, you're black. You're a black man in this country. Don't forget who you are. No, you're Muslim before you're black. You're Muslim first. You're Salafi first. You're a person of Hadith first. That's what's going to benefit you in the grave, not the fact that you're black. The angels are not going to ask you that in the grave. Were you white and black in this dunya? They're not going to ask you that. That's the reason why we tell people to learn these books. Learn your Aqidah. So you cannot be swayed by these calls to the hellfire. Easily one can be duped, especially if you're constantly around friends that pump this nonsense in your head. Consistently, every day. They send you another clip, and then another clip, and then another clip. Then you now find yourself start speaking like them. Yeah, Akhi, you don't realize, Akhi, I know the plight of the black man in America. I know it very well. I know it all too well. I know all the policies here in America. I know as far as in regards to how they have truly have destroyed African Americans here. I know, I've studied it, I've talked to it, I know it very well, and I'll tell it to people. For example, we don't even got to go in what the white people did. That's one thing as far as non-Muslims. I'm talking about the Salafi brothers. The non-Muslims, we know what they did. That's clear. Even the policies they made for foreigners to come here. When foreigners come here, they have a head start when they come here. We don't even have those privileges here. Foreigners get more of a head start than black people, than African Americans here. So I know. And I don't know if even some of the foreigners even know that they have more privileges and rights than the actual African Americans here when they come here. I don't think they even realize it. So they come here and be like, how you guys are like this? And we came here, we established this store, we established this business with ease. That's because they already had that set up and lined up for you when you came here. They all had those privileges. Trust me, brothers, I have total information of this stuff. I know. But at the same time, you can't combat what? You can't combat falsehood with falsehood. You can't combat one call to the hellfire with another call to hellfire. You can't. It won't be blessed, and it's not going to help the black man. It's not going to help him at all. Rather, it's going to get them in another plight, which is slavery to their lusts and desires. If what's going on right now in our society, where they're blowing their heads off. Because now you take them from one form of slavery to a slavery of their own lusts and desires, which is another form of slavery. And also of their own whims and their own so-called ideas and their own opinions on things. And when those things are not been modulated or they have not been controlled by what Allah and His Messenger say, it's another form of destruction. So that's what we're saying in regards to, we know the plight of black men in this country, African Americans in this country. They have destroyed this race. And their men are dying off like flies every day. They are destroying this race here. Eradicated. You see all the things around, from the white people, from the foreigners don't like them, and their own race is even killing them, and their women don't like them. Their own women despise them. What more now can you bring down for people once you destroyed their men and also made them feminine on top of that, where they love homosexuality too? So you add more and more destruction onto them. Trust me, I know. But at the same time, the only thing that's going to cure it is what, everyone? What Allah and His Messenger has sent down. No more, no less. I don't want to hear calls about Farrakhan. I don't want to hear a call individuals calling to the hellfire clearly. Bring that filth, take that filth and throw it in the garbage. Bring that mothership theory of filth and throw it in the garbage. You took advantage of a people who was broke down emotionally and took advantage of them. You utilized their pain in order to what? Gain some filthy worldly gain and power. That's it. And at the end of the day, you know and I know he's a Mason. He's a Mason. Majority of these people are all filthy Masons. Majority of them. For what I say, brothers and sisters, the only way you're going to combat falsehood is with haqq. That's it. You can't combat falsehood with democracy. You can't combat falsehood with liberalism. You can't combat falsehood with black nationality. You can't combat racism and bigotry with falsehood. We're coming with some opposite extreme of oppression, which is also going to land the people in the hellfire ultimately. You can't do it. It won't be blessed by Allah. Allah will not bless it, and that call will fail. And the ultimate failure is eternal punishment in the hellfire forever. And everybody needs to keep that focus. It's not financial success. It's about eternal success. Where you will end up eternally is where the true success lies, everyone. Everyone loses the sight of this because Shaitan decorates this dunya and embellishes it for us. That's the reason why everybody always busy themselves with trying to rectify their dunya more than their hereafter, where it doesn't make any sense. Even logically, Shaykh Ibn al-Qayyim said, you so-called to rationalize, that doesn't make sense. Why would I want to busy and put my all into something that's going away from me every day where something eternal is about to happen at any moment? It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. You're supposed to be busy with something that's going to be eternal, not something that's temporary. It could be snatched any moment. Is it clear? Is it not clear, everyone? I'm sorry, so don't stop here. All right, tomorrow we'll continue. Any questions about the lesson? We got لابد أن نصلي. لابد أن نصلي. نكتفي بهذا القدر. Any questions about the lesson? So you have who, everyone? You have a Shaykh al-Astani. You have also what, everyone? What, everyone? Al-Fakhr al-Razi. And we also have Abu al-Ma'ali Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni. Imam al-Haramain وإن لم يكن كذلك هو ليس إمام الحرمين كما سنفصل ذلك غدا إن شاء الله. But at any rate, Imam al-Haramain, as they call them, as he call him, Imam al-Haramain Abu al-Ma'ali al-Juwayni. So those are the affairs we stopped at. We said that they even regretted that they busied themselves with what, everyone? With logic and with philosophy. And today we're in a state of bewilderment and confusion and doubt concerning Allah's existence. That's the reason why. Stay away from all those affairs and do not be from those who debate falsehood, utilize the so-called combat falsehood, utilizing the people of the hellfire, or the methodologies, or the speech of the people of the hellfire, the so-called combat falsehood. Is it clear, everyone? Is there any questions? So, you clear? Could have shade well there? Huh?
We stopped on page 60.
Put a mark on it. Was it 60 what?
It's just 60.
60.
Yes. Yep, 60.
We'll stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.